welcome to the Monday evening.
You love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Welcome in to Field of 68 After Dark here on a busy Sunday. We've had some nice wins that are being polished off as we speak. We've had some demoralizing, deflating losses taken in college basketball today, and we're going to break it all down, maybe even get into a little bit of the action from earlier this weekend as well. It's ACC night here on Field of 68 After Dark. We've got North Carolina Tar Heel Tyler Hansbrough on the show, as well as Clemson sharpshooter Terrence Oglesby. These guys are going to be joining me tonight. We'll talk about all the comings and goings in college basketball. Fellas, appreciate you being here tonight. But let's start with the big result from earlier today is Kansas, and the currently won't last for much longer, maybe 14, 16 more hours, but that was the case anyway. The number one ranked Kansas Jayhawks go down today on the road at Missouri. As you see there, 76-67. 29 points there from Bates for Missouri. Certainly a signature win for Dennis Gates and his Missouri tenure. T.O., this is loss number 2 for the Kansas Jayhawks this week. They lost to a healthier Creighton team at the time. No longer the case, but it was healthier at the time. What do you make of this week for Kansas and these 2 losses?
Hey, hold on, man. Let's do something real quick. We have to give props to Mizzou for a big win at home in the border war, which is one of the more underrated rivalries in college basketball. And Mr. Brightside blaring at the end with Tamar Bates doing a big-time interview with Fran Fraschilla. I thought that was awesome, but I have so much respect for Tamar Bates. That dude played in 32 games last year, all 32 that Mizzou had, and he just put his head down and he kept working and kept working and kept working. Now Mizzou's 8-1, and I incorrectly said that he was a sixth-year senior. I just feel like everybody who's older is a sixth-year senior at this point because that's just how college basketball is going. But, man, he was awesome. 29 points and, 5 steals? Big-time stuff. And you would expect Kansas to be able to take care of the ball better than what they did today. But, man, all the credit to Mizzou. Dennis Gates has rebounded nicely, and Kansas has got some things to figure out, but this was a big-time performance by Mizzou, whose only loss on the year was when Memphis was playing well at the beginning of the season, game numero uno. So big win for them. I think this is a program and confidence-building win for Mizzou, and this goes to a broader picture, gentlemen. Like the SEC this year, through the non-conference, has put together arguably the best non-conference slate that I've seen since covering the sport. Now, covering the sport and playing the sport is 2 separate things. I've left Europe in 2016, so that's fairly recent history. However, unbelievable top to bottom in the SEC. Mizzou gets a big win.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate you doing that, T.O. That was an incredibly noble thing for you to do, to focus on the winner.
Mizzou.
To focus on the winner. I appreciate you doing it. Tyler, this is loss number 2 for Kansas, though, in the same week. And obviously big favorites here. Road losses going to happen in college basketball. But this was a Kansas team, again, that enters the year ranked number 1. What's missing here? What's missing with these Jayhawks from what you've seen?
Well, in particular today, I think turnovers are an issue. If I look at the game today, it looks like they've turned the ball over 22 times. That's not going to win ball games. And I really felt like their guards struggled with pressure. That's one thing that Mizzou did really well today is they came out from the gates pressuring them, and KU just turned it over, and they couldn't find ways to get Dickinson the ball down low. It just seems like they really struggled putting Dickinson into scoring positions and getting him the ball, especially with Mizzou's pressure. And the one other thing I will say is Kansas has to get better production from their transfers. A.J. Storr, 1 for 7 from the field goals today, and then 0 from 3 from the three-point line. They've got to get better production from some of their transfers and some of these guys that they brought in. And they've got to figure out how they can get the ball to Dickinson down low, easier, and in scoring positions, because he's a good passing big. When he takes his time and he's established down low, he can actually really pass it well from that position. But also I'm with T.O. on this as well. Mizzou is an underrated team. When I watched them today, I was surprised. Even Mark Mitchell, he attacked the basket. It just seems like all the attacks from Mizzou, they all had downhill attacks. All their guards were attacking the rim instead of settling for outside jump shots. And the other thing that Mizzou did is they had some big guys that really made it tough for Dickinson. They had a couple 7-footers come in there. The Gray kid, he was fighting for boards. And when you do that and you have guys of that size, it wears Hunter down and makes him, tired throughout the ball game. And so in the later stages of the game, you saw Dickinson pick up a lot of lackadaisical, frustrated fouls.
Another thing too is Hunter Dickinson. This is the first time he's seen like size. I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner last game, Kansas loses. Creighton, he sees like size, struggled with that. He's not the most explosive guy. He's massive, not the most explosive guy. Today, Josh Gray, every bit as big and as physical, just not as talented offensively. Like, Josh Gray's a nice player. But I think this also goes to the length of Mizzou and how it bothered them. But it all comes down to if you're able to take care of the ball. Much like Tyler said, like, you give them 23 points off turnovers, that's a massive difference and a massive margin of error on an opponent's floor. Whenever you're away from home, you have to take care of the ball and do those little things to win, or else you're in trouble. And Kansas, let's be honest, a little bit of a rut here. If you're able to rebound fairly quickly, they got NC State coming in at home here soon. It's a game they should win. Brown, another get-right game. West Virginia, after that, you start conference play, could get real interesting. But if you're going to hit a lull, I would venture to say that you want to hit a lull right before conference play starts. So when conference gets going, you can kind of find your rhythm again, because right now you win some games, especially they beat Furman by 1 billion. Like, everything's all well and good. They beat Duke before that, but that's not my point. I'm going to ignore that for a second. Like, you lose a couple of games, you can find what you're doing incorrectly, and then you're going to be able to fix some of those things.
Yeah, last thing on Kansas here, T.O., before we get sort of the larger picture about who is going to be number one. And honestly, that conversation was going to happen regardless of what happened today, because they lost on Wednesday against Creighton. But, KU comes in number one in the country in the preseason. What are they sort of closer to in your mind? I mean, when if you're just going to sort of project this out, I mean, are they a 1 seed? Are they a 2 seed, 3? I mean, if you're just sort of evaluating and assessing what this team ultimately becomes by the end of the year, where do you sort of think their range lands?
They're still in that 1 to 2 margin. One thing that whenever you bring in so many shooters and perimeter-oriented players, they're not getting to the free throw line very much. And that's not consistent with what they've done in their program over the past X amount of years. Kansas gets to the free throw line largely because when you play at Fog Allen, like, you're getting to the free throw line. You're getting every call. You better win by 15 points to beat them by 1 there, because they get to the free throw line. This year hasn't necessarily been the case. They're out of their field goals to free throw attempt to field goal attempt ratio, they're 361st. What? Kansas? What are we doing? Yep. So whenever you bring so many perimeter-oriented guys, you're going to shoot a lot of jump shots. That's been a little bit more of the case this year. Then you throw in the fact that they're turning it over and not getting some of those easy buckets. That part's tough. But if I had to project out, I'd say they're still in that mix, guys. They're still super talented, and I have no doubt Bill Self's going to figure this out. I would say still they're in that 1, 2, maybe 3 range.
Yeah, by the way, we do have a final, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. Duke 76-65 over Louisville after trailing at the half. All right, look, tomorrow the sun is going to rise, and we're going to get a new AP Top 25, and number 1 is not going to be Kansas, Tyler. So with that sort of slate being clean, who deserves to be number 1 in America?
Tennessee will probably be number 1, but That's not my number one team. I think it's going to go with Alabama, in my opinion, after watching them in the Smith Center. I walked out of there seeing their bigs, Omorier, mixed with Mark Sears, and their young guys. They have good veteran players, a good mix of young guys. And the amount of pressure and their athleticism and the way they play, downhill attacks, layups, threes, they looked like a team that could really contend. And right now, I know they lost to Oregon, but recently I'm going to go with Alabama. After just seeing them play at the Smith Center and the way they dominated the Tar Heels, my Tar Heels, it's hard not to believe that there's a better team out there than them right now when they're playing well.
I'm going to say the correct answer is Tennessee. The guys on the other side of the state that are actually winning games, John Martin. That's who I would say is.
What a shitty day for me. What a shitty day for me.
He's having to hold his own mic. His team lost to a team that's an hour away. We're going to get to Memphis in a little bit.
I need to hire an intern from Knoxville to come hold my mic. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, you do. Here's the thing with Tennessee is, last year they had Dalton Connect. This year there's a lot of turnover on the roster. And defensively, they're the same as they've always been. And they're second in the country behind Duke, who absolutely put their foot on the gas against Louisville in the second half. Pretty remarkable how good they can be defensively when they just decide to be that. We're not talking about Duke. We're talking about Tennessee. I feel like Tennessee's in the mix. You know how physical they are. They're not just beating teams. They're smoking them. And whenever you bring in transfers, and I think they get unfairly compared to Dalton Connect, there's no Dalton Connect. And Chaz Lanier was a very good player at North Florida, but whenever people brought him in, they were like, well, he could be our next Dalton Connect. I think he's a very good scorer, and he's a high-level scorer. That's obvious. You see what he's averaging so far. However, the way he scores is more conducive to the other players on the team having good nights as well. So that ball's popping around a little bit more. He's keeping it very simple. Everything he does is inside 2 dribbles. And as a result, if he doesn't have anything, some of these other guys are able to get going. I feel like Zakai Ziegler's had an even better offensive year, and he's still having his typical volume. I like Igor Milicic, what he's been able to bring to the table. I thought he was a bad fit. Truth be told, I thought he was a bad fit. He just started playing defense by proxy. He goes to Tennessee. In Knoxville, they teach you defense. They teach you how to be physical, and he ended up being a plus on that end of the floor. It's also allowed Jordan Gainey to get some offensive rhythm and flow because he's allowed to be a bigger part of the offense. And sometimes these guys, guards in particular, and I was one of these guys, they're rhythm players. You have to be able to touch the ball some and move it around, and then you can kind of find creases in the defense in order to make yourself better on the offensive end. And that happens when the ball's popping. And that happens when you're feeling like you're a part of the offense. So as a result, you still have this high-level scorer like Chaz Lanier, but at the same time, it's not taking away from some of these other players. I'm not saying Dalton Connect did that, but I also know what it's like to play against super talented dudes, and you're told to go stand in the corner. Makes it really hard. And I feel like this Tennessee offense really fits well together.
By the way, as we speak, UCLA beats Oregon at the buzzer. The bank is open. The bank is open on a Sunday for UCLA. We'll get to that game, obviously, here momentarily. I want to follow up, Tio, with look, I can acknowledge a job well done. As much as it may pain me to do, I can acknowledge a job well done. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the second #1 ranking for Rick Barnes since he's gotten to Tennessee. I believe he got to #1 at one point in 2019 as well. This, of course, is the coach who was, criticized quite a bit at Texas, for not getting the results in the tournament. I think there was definitely some skepticism over what he would be able to do at Tennessee. And I mean, look, he's been consistently, objectively awesome at Tennessee. People thought this was like some kind of golden parachute, golden contract. It's been the opposite of that for him at Tennessee, if we're being honest, T.O.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too. I think there's a big problem at Texas. You feel like you have to win the offseason there. And at Tennessee, it's great to get like 1 or 2 McDonald's All-Americans, but if you look up and down the roster, like Zakai Ziegler I think Tennessee was like his only offer. Like Chaz Lanier is a transfer from North Florida. Milicic came from Charlotte. So you can get guys that fit you. At Texas, you see it now. You see it when Shaka was there. You see it when Rick Barnes was there. You have to win every offseason, not necessarily the guy that fits you the best. And that's an issue because sometimes it's hard to get these freshman guys that are going to be here for a year to really buy into a team concept and culture. That being said, Shock has found a better spot. Now Rick Barnes has found a better spot. As a result, you're able to see those guys have success.
No, he's done a really good job. Mentioned it, got a buzzer beater, obviously in the Big Ten, UCLA at the Horn, and then Duke gets the road win at Louisville. So we'll break all of that down, get these guys' thoughts on the action and more. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark. Stick around.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app.
Welcome back, Field of 68 After Dark. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by Terrence Oglesby, by Tyler Hansbrough. A lot of action on a Sunday, which I love. I love that, we're getting to that part of the calendar where we got some big games on a Sunday, and that's exactly what we had, including Duke on the road at Louisville. They do come back from a first half deficit to win pretty comfortably by the end of it, 76-65. I had some stuff ready to go. I had some takes ready to go. Had Duke actually not won that game, but they did, despite Cooper Flagg's foul trouble, despite some inconsistent play, to say the least, from the guards. Tyler, what do you make of this win for Duke? I know it's not a ranked Louisville team, but that's a Louisville team whose arrow has been pointing up at times. Just sort of, the to go on the road and get a win like that. What does that say about Duke today?
Well, Duke's a young team. So, first of all, it's a conference opponent, and Louisville's a much different team than what we're, used to talking about or kind of laughing at from the previous years under Payne. But I will say, with these young guys going into Louisville is a hungry team, and they're competing this year, and they're playing hard. So this is a big win. You can never take, granted for a conference road win. The one thing I do like about Duke is they are probably the biggest team in college, and they're a young team that's going to continue to get better and better. Maluwatch, the big guy, I love him. I know he's not the most appealing offensive player, but I think when you have guys of his size and length, he can be a rim protector, and he can control the paint, and it allows Cooper Flagg not to put so much pressure on him on being a big man inside, getting banged up. He can do his thing from pretty much anywhere. And the Knipple kid, he's one of those guys that can get it hot, spread the floor, knockdown shooter. And Tyrese Proctor, even though he struggled from the outside, especially with his shot past few years, it seems like he's an improved, more confident player. He's one of those guys that's been injured a little bit, so he's never really had his rhythm. This year, it seems like he's healthy and confident and playing with a lot more confidence, especially with his outside shot. Now, I think Duke's going to continue to grow, and eventually, if they're not the number, 3 or top 3 team, at the end of the year, we're all going to be talking about them being a contender They're one of those teams right now. In my mind, I will put them with Alabama, one of those teams that is good but will be good enough to win the whole thing later in the year.
I couldn't agree more than with what you just said. And just because I was curious, I went and checked on KenPom because I know how Tyler loves KenPom. They are the tallest team in the country on average. And it's not just that they're big. It's that they're big and they can move. Like Kaman Malawach, who's every bit of 7'2", massive dude, super long wingspan. I think it's like a 7'7" wingspan. It's ridiculous. They move so well, and he can even get out there and guard on the perimeter at the end of the shot clock. Defensively, they can keep themselves in ball games every single night. Every single night. They are that good. They're that lengthy. They're that switchable at the end of the clock. Kudos to Louisville. They came out on fire. This is a Louisville team that hasn't shot the ball very well this year. And it's kind of weird because every player that they have on that roster shot it well at their previous destination. And we know that Louisville added 13 new scholarship guys. They had 2 guys that aren't going to play this season, Ali Khalifa and Rogers, that came over from Charleston with them. And then they lost 3 more guys for a little bit. So Case and Pryor and the kid Corin Johnson, those guys are both out for the year. Like, it's going to take a little bit of readjustment for Louisville to get going. That being said, I still feel like Louisville's a top half of the league team in the ACC. I feel like there's enough there because we all have seen how the ACC's been in the non-conference and where the talent level is in the league. Louisville's still a top half of the league kind of team. So they're going to be able to win some games. But I'm just kind of waiting to see if Pat Kelsey's going to be able to get that first marquee home win because they've had some big ones in the MTE. I thought they played really well at Battle for Atlantis. Are they going to get that first home game is huge. But Duke defensively is incredible. What I found intriguing today, Cooper Flagg goes down with his 4th foul. Duke goes on a 13-2 run. And what I think happened, and you guys watched it too, so I'm curious your all's take on this. I think Duke started running some different offense that was a little bit more elongated. On top of the fact that they turned some more defense into offense, but they were running some different things because I feel like sometimes Cooper gets that ball on the top. It's a quick ball screen and let my man cook, where whenever he went to the bench, they were calling some sets that required 1, 2, 3 passes before they tried to attack. And you saw some of these guys catch and being able to attack closeouts, most notably Tyrese Proctor. So you look at what they were able to do when he was on the bench. I feel like that's something you're going to be able to carry over into their next game.
Yeah, Tyler, do you have any thoughts on that? Because obviously nobody's suggesting that Duke is better without Cooper Flagg. That'd be ridiculous. But they did go on a run, when he went to the bench with that 4th foul. Like, any sort of theories on your end? Is it that they're running different stuff that's less ISO heavy? Like, what do you think, is the logic behind that?
Yeah, I do agree with T.O. on this, and I'm glad he's brought that up because if you look at the loss against Kentucky, I really felt like at the end of the game, they relied too much on Cooper Flagg to try to win him that basketball game. If you look at it, it was just a direct give him the ball and let him try to make a bucket, go ISO. And I just feel like with their talent and the guys that they have, that I feel like if they would have ran a set or a play instead of just give it to Cooper and kind of let the defense load up on him, I feel like they would have got a much better shot. And I agree with that. Sometimes they rely too much on the ISO when they actually run a set and they get something within the flow of the game or off of movement, they're a much better team. But that is a great point. And I do think that as the season goes on, part of the learning curve for also the coaching staff with these players is they'll grow and they'll figure out what sets can be go-to plays late in the game, what they can rely on, and where to put him in scoring position to really know that, hey, we get him on that right block or we put him in this situation off a couple screens instead of just sending him into an ISO situation. We've got a good chance of getting him a bucket right there.
To compound on what he said at the very end, one more thing. Mid-February, Duke's the best team in college basketball. Mid-February. They're still figuring out a lot of things, but there's too many tools there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had him in my preseason Final Four. I mean, for obvious reasons. And Cooper Flagg kind of, to me, exists on his own wavelength. I will say, every time I watch them play, like, there's a little skepticism that is building in me about their guard play. Like, and I think about, and I'm not talking about Cooper Flag. I'm talking really more about like Caleb Foster. Like Caleb Foster.
Well, he hit the top of the side. He hit the top of the side of the backboard today. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, and the announcers like, did that hit the top? It did hit the top.
Crispin called him out. That was awesome.
It's a super high bar, so I recognize that totally. But when you think about the Auburn backcourt, and you think about the Alabama backcourt, and you think about the other backcourts that Duke is going to have to be better than at the end of this thing, I mean, do you really buy that this group of guards can be that?
Hell yes.
I believe in it.
Okay.
I believe in it. Yes, absolutely. And the reason I say that is because they can win ugly. You know, TL talked about that.
Boom.
You know, and
big point.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to the tournament, you've got to rely on your defense and rebounding. And I think they do that. They have the size that can affect people's shots. I mean, their guard play can be suspect at times, but they have the length and they can do it in other ways.
No, you're right. If Caleb Foster's out there, it's going to be ugly. I mean, he's going to hit the side of the
don't do
backboard,
that. Don't do that. He's a good player. He's been okay this year. He's adjusting to a new role. He's been a scorer his entire life, and now he's being asked to facilitate the offense. That is a big adjustment. As a dude who tried to play point guard, who's just like, the hell with it, I'm just going to pass it and turn it into a two guard again. This is after I left college too, so like, just let me pretend this is true. But like it's not an easy adjustment to be like, I'm going to initiate offense. I'm going to try to create. I'm going to try to do these different things. This is a process for him. Some of these other guys, like I thought Sion James came in, gave good minutes. He had a big bucket there at the end. I thought the guy who changed the game defensively today was Malik Brown. That dude is a problem. Yeah. His wingspan is insane. He cleaned up around the rim. I wouldn't say – here's the thing. They have so many different guys that can just initiate offense. You just have to find enough shooting on the perimeter to space it out, because I think it's going to be fine there because they're so good defensively.
All right, so when we zoom out of the ACC picture, if we've got Duke, there at the top, who's their biggest challenger? I think I'll be curious if we could get you guys on a consensus here. Tyler, who do you think is the main contender here for number 2 or even number 1 still in the ACC?
I would have to go with Clemson right now. I think in Shefflin, he's a guy that mixes it up, and they have some other veteran players. Brad Burnell's has done a good job there. Defensively, they bring it, and they beat Kentucky. They have a big win at home. I think that right now, the way they're playing, they can compete with Duke. I think North Carolina. You guys are going to call me crazy. And I know they've lost 3 straight right before Georgia Tech, but I've always believed that Carolina is going to be a different team later, midseason to the later in the year, just based off the fact that they're going to have the freshmen in Jackson and Drake Powell be a much bigger picture of this team, just because their development and the way that they can continue to grow and get better. They're too talented not to be a big part of this team, and I think that they'll really find their confidence and also be more playing time and figure out how to get more involved in the offense. And I think it's going to be something that will be a huge benefit to Carolina once we figure out the front court situation and get a little more production out of them. Those 2 teams right now come to my mind that can compete with Kentucky. Louisville's playing tough, or with Duke. Yeah.
The answer is Clemson. I think there's a steep drop-off after Clemson. I think it's Duke, Clemson, steep drop-off. Then you get to Pitt, I think North Carolina, and then, it's tough, man. Like they haven't set the world on fire right now. I think SMU is better than people realize. NC State has been decent. But I think you go Duke and then you go Clemson. And I think the game changer for Clemson this year is going to be Victor Locken. Initially, I thought it was going to be Chauncey Wiggins. I thought Chauncey played really well against Kentucky. Defensively, he was able to turn it on, get to the cup a little bit. Offensively, in that game, you were able to see glimpses of, you're like, hey, man, this is what we've been wanting for a while. This is the guy that you can be. So maybe that's a confidence builder for him. But, at the beginning of the season, I picked Clemson 4th or 5th. I think they're going to finish 2nd. I feel like defensively they're good enough. And Victor Locke and the Cincinnati transfer has been really good. I don't know. Like I did their Eastern Kentucky game. I watched their game against regular Kentucky, against big Kentucky. And it was like he looks exhausted every minute he's out there. Like, how some girls have resting mean girl face? I'm gonna use that word.
Yeah.
Resting mean girl face. I think
after
he's got
dark.
Resting, I think I'm not saying it. He's got resting I'm exhausted face. And that's okay. I just always wonder how tired is this guy really? But if he's able to be a 3rd option or a 4th option on a given night, like Clemson's freaking good, man. Like, it is not a game. Jaden Zachary might be the best guard defender in the conference, and that's including the guys at Duke. Like, they have some real studs on that end of the floor. But North Carolina, I'm just gonna say it, Tyler. I'm sorry, man. Unless you're suiting up next game, I'm worried about that front court. And it's not about getting it figured out. I'm not sure it's there. And it was almost poetic in that when they played Alabama, Clifford Omorie was the guy that was just crushing them on the inside. And that was, Carolina was in his final bit, and I don't think that they wanted to bid back and forth for it. And he ends up going to Alabama, and he ends up being awesome. Think about if Omorie was in a Carolina jersey. That changes the whole dynamic of how they play. Now, they don't have him, so how do you fix it? You got to get R.J. Davis back in the mix. He has been woefully inefficient this year. He's taking much harder shots than he ever has in his career at Carolina. How do you find easier looks for him? Because right now I feel like he's settling a little bit too much for tough ones, and his usage rate is out of this world. And I'm a big R.J. Davis fan, but there's been times this year where you just kind of scratch your head and you're like, man, is that the one you needed? Because there's enough talent around the perimeter to where you'll be able to find shots offensively. That all being said, you're going to have to start gang rebounding because you're just getting out muscled right now, and the players just aren't big enough. And Jalen Washington, as talented as he is, he's not the most bruising guy that you can throw out there. So I'm a little bit worried about their front court. I don't know what their ceiling really is with that front court. And to me, it's so weird watching them because Carolina's never had this problem. Never. There's always been monsters in there. When Tyler's team, whenever we would play and Tyler's team would walk out on the floor, you knew it was North Carolina. Like, because those dudes were huge, they were rangy, they were long, and they were just built a certain way. This Carolina team, while they still put pressure on the rim offensively, they can't do enough on the other end to compete. That's where I'm more worried than anything. I think Carolina still makes the tournament, but I think they're in that 8-9 range. Like, you're gonna be in that 8-9 game.
T.O., I know. Are you gonna let a Clemson product talk like this? I mean, he's
Am I saying
talking
something mean? I'm not trying to be mean. This is how I feel. This is how like it seems. Like, I don't think I'm wrong. I think they still make the tournament. Is that good enough for Carolina fans?
It's not Carolina standard, but I'll tell you this right now: everything that T.O. said, I mean, that's not a secret. But I will say this: he's right. How do you fix the front court? Well, you don't. You're not going to have a guy that's going to provide you with the length, or, you're not going to have a talented big. We are who we are, and we've got to rebound as a unit. We've talked about that. And, if you look at some of the games, it's not like we're just getting destroyed on the board statistically. But if you look and you watch the game, we struggle against length. We struggle not only against, every shot being contested, but if you look at the guards, you look at Elliot Cadeau, R.J. Davis, Seth Trimble, they're all 6 foot or, under. Some of them might be under 6 foot. Yeah. If they're 6 foot or a little bit over, they are small guards that struggle with length right now. But the real thing for me is they've got to find ways to get easier buckets. And I've talked about why it's so important for this team to play with pace and to get up and down, and why they have to play so fast is because whenever you play fast and you really push the ball, it doesn't allow teams to set their defense, and it promotes easy buckets towards the rim, and it promotes easy layups. That way you're not having to finish over length all the time. And whenever you're not getting stops defensively and you're taking the ball out of bounds, it makes you play a little bit slower. And so the real issue is we've got to bring it defensively. We've got to force teams into turning it over. And if you look at Alabama, you look at a lot of their losses, they're a team that will turn the ball over. They turned it over against Oregon. They turned it over against other teams, Rutgers. And we didn't do that against Alabama. And so we had to play after a made shot, really a slowed down game. And we're not good when we have to slow it down and play against teams' defensive sets. And, Alabama's a lengthy team. Amorie, we just couldn't get anything easy over their bigs. And their wing players are athletic that pressure the ball. And we really struggled with that. But right now, RJ Davis, he has to find his rhythm. I think he has to get easier looks. It kind of feels like, a lot of the shots that he's taking are contested, hard, difficult, Kobe-ish shots. And we've got to figure out how we can get easier looks. And I think a big part of that has to do with you got to have guys have better off-the-ball movement instead of just let the guy have one ball penetrate and the guards just kind of stand still on the outside. Then you kick it to him and do the same thing over and over. You've got to have more scoring cuts, and guys have to put more pressure on the other team's defense and really make their defense work so we can get something easy towards the bucket instead of having to shoot contested three-point shots instead of easy open looks.
Yeah, I think it's all a very, very fair and honest breakdown of what Carolina is dealing with. And obviously, if you watch that team play, that all hits. There's no question about
Hey,
that.
one more thing before we go to break. One more thing before we go to break, and I know Dagan's going to want to kill me, but I don't care. Look at their losses. Look at Carolina's losses, though. And Tyler, you bring up a great point. Kansas, they gave up 92 points. Auburn, 85 points. Michigan State, 94 points. Alabama, 94 points. The problem is because you're not getting any stops, you can't get out and run. So to Tyler's point, like if you're having to inbound that ball every time, that really limits what you can do. And because those guards are small, they're having a hard time forcing turnovers too. So it's kind of a double whammy right now. That size is just killing them. Yeah.
All right, listen, don't look now, but Dan Hurley's having a good week. He didn't have a good week in Hawaii, but he's having a better week now that he's gotten back to Connecticut and kind of resetting this thing. So we'll get into that. Penny Hardaway not having a good week. Get into that as well. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark.
Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
Welcome back, Field of 68 After Dark here on a Sunday. Lots of college basketball action today. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by my guys Terrence Oglesby and Tyler Hansbrough. Gonna run over a few games here that went final today. We'll kind of go in order here. Purdue bounces back after a really tough loss at Penn State, and they do handle business against Maryland at home, 83-78. Tyler, what do you think of this Purdue team? Just off the rip, what do you think of this Purdue team? Top 10 in the country. Obviously, Matt Painter has had to reload. What do you make of where they are right now, and just your opinion of them?
Well, I think they're they have good veteran guards. And I remember when Zach Edey was there, we were talking about their guard play being weak. Well, these guard plays, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, these guys have grown up and they've developed into good veteran guard players for, a team that's coached by Matt Painter. I'm a big Matt Painter fan. First of all, I think he's a great coach. He runs a lot of good sets. So Purdue is just, to me, one of those teams that is, they're a top 15 team. They're going to be tough. They're going to make smart plays, and they're going to win ball games, but they're going to lose sometimes on the road, the teams that pressure them. I think, Penn State, they can give you a lot of different defensive looks, full court press. But you know what? I'm not worried about Purdue. I just think they have good veteran guards play, and, those guard play, when you have good guards, you're going to win ball games, and that's what Purdue has.
He's absolutely right. And Braden Smith going for 24 and 10 and 4 boards. That little sucker's tough. And we were kind of curious, who would be kind of the shot creator. I thought both Fletcher Lawyer and Braden relied on Zach Edey a lot. Well, might have been holding Braden Smith back a little bit because you were running so much stuff. That dude is quick. And as my old high school coach used to say, he's quicker than a wet fart, and he's hard to keep in. So, these guys – really, really good. But I think where it changes up, Trey Kaufman-Renn has taken a step. And I was kind of curious how it was going to go against Derek Queen. Derek Queen's been a stud all year. He ends up with 26 and 12. They're really good. But Purdue, you have to take care of your home court in conference play. That's number one. You hope to win about half, maybe 3/4 if you're really good on the road. Maybe. But you have to take care of the home court. Purdue's able to do that in large part because they have such good guards. But Braden Smith, I said this earlier, Kim Jones, I think, is the best guard in college basketball. Best pure point guard is Braden Smith. And in a day and age now where it's pretty much an extinct position because every guard's a scoring guard, Braden Smith is as good as you're going to find. And I'd be damned if he's listed at 6 feet because he doesn't look that tall out there. And he is absolutely terrific, and he's been that good all season long.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, it's probably, like I've said before on the show, it's damn near impossible to quantify losing the player that Zach Edey is in terms of just everything he did for you, in terms of the things that he did that didn't even show up, right? And the attention and the game planning that he commanded. So I think it should not be taken for granted, even though, there have been some disappointing losses. Certainly that Penn State loss, disappointing.
Yeah, and he got outplayed. And Braden Smith got outplayed in that Penn State game. Ace Baldwin Ace Baldwin was ready, but what a way to respond for him. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just going to, the fact that they're right back here in the mix as a top 10 team. I mean, I just think that should not be taken for granted at all. I mean, and that, again, Braden Smith coming back and taking a huge step. I mean, we were having arguments about that guy in group chats, a year and a half ago as to whether or not he was, anything other than a Zach Edey merchant. Well, we got our answer. He is certainly not that. And obviously leads Purdue to a 83-78 win today against Maryland at home. All right, what's the old saying? Rumors of Dan Hurley's demise may have been greatly exaggerated or premature, because don't look now. What is this? Two out of 3 ranked wins. You beat Baylor. Well, I guess Texas wasn't ranked, but that's a good team. That's obviously a good team, and it's on the road. So it's a pseudo-ranked win. I'm going to call it a pseudo-ranked win, all right, damn it. But that was really never even in doubt, T.O., as UConn gets Caravan back, and they go into Austin, and they get this win in very comfortable fashion, 76-65, led by Alex Caravan. As we sort of see this season progress and we can put Maui behind us, is this UConn team going to be in the mix for a third straight by the end of this season?
I think they're very much a second weekend possibility there. I think getting all the way to the national championship game and winning it is possible. I don't know that it's probable. I do like what they have. Donovan Klingen's not walking through those doors. I feel like Terrence Reed's still very good. Alex Caravan was great in the first half today, and I thought what changes things for them is when they decide to defend. Because so far this year, outside of these last 2 games, the defense has been kind of here and there. Last 2 games has been excellent. They shouldn't have gone to Maui. They should have gone to Texas for vacation, because then Hurley would have been a lot happier.
Tyler, what do you make of this UConn team? I mean, now that they're, like we said, trying to put that week behind them.
I'm not worried about UConn. I think that Hurley, I don't know what in the heck happened to him out in Hawaii, 3 straight to unranked teams. But I will say Caravan, I like him. Samson Johnson, I'm a big fan of him. But also Terrence Reed is a guy who can provide you with some scoring down low. And I really feel like Dan Hurley does a really good job of, using his bigs in different ways and put them in scoring position. You look at Klingon, you look at the big that they had. I can't remember the guy from the championship run.
Adama Sanogo.
Sanogo. I mean, Sanogo and Reed. I mean, Reed's no Sanogo, but kind of similar styles. I mean, he can get you
good
down
point.
low, good hands, get you rebounds, and I feel like he's one of those guys. And the McNeely kid is a talented freshman. Could they contend for a third? It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't be, floored if they didn't make it to the Final Four. Once you get to the Final Four, you can have a chance at a title again. And obviously, I think that you can never underestimate experience, good quality coaching. Hurley knows what he's doing. He's been there, and he'll know how to get his team ready. And, I love the sets that they run. And this is a very disciplined team, just like every other Hurley team. They run sets that really make the defense work, and they have guys that are athletic and big, and they have rim protectors. The Johnson kid is a rim threat, and he will protect and control the paint with his athleticism and length, and I'm a big fan of that, and I think that wins you ball games in the tournament, especially when you can't score, and I think that's a great asset.
Huge opportunity for them on Saturday, obviously, with Gonzaga. Tio, you look like you had a thought.
No, I think also, everybody mentions Caravan. I feel like everybody by default has to mention Liam McNeely because he was a highly ranked kid and he shoots a pretty ball. But like against Dayton, he was nothing. The guy that I have been really impressed with, and a lot of it is because I didn't see it coming. Solo ball. Whenever I saw him play in high school, I was like, man, big athlete, super long arms, capable of doing anything on the floor. But sometimes these muscle-bound guys struggle to shoot the ball. And his shot was okay, but it wasn't something to really write home about. That dude is filling it the hell up. And he's spotlighting at the point guard. The man's shooting almost 46% from 3, and it's not on like 10 attempts, or 15, 20 attempts. The dude's getting rocks up and he's knocking down shots. He has really stepped forward. It's like he had to wait and learn behind Tristan Newton and learn behind Cam Spencer. And then he's come in and he's really taken advantage of his opportunity. Like, kid is talented and he kind of gives them another threat on the perimeter. But, you look around, Hassan Diarra, 4 points, I think 11 assists today, or 10 assists. Like, they have guys who are so willing to buy into their role. And a lot of that's credit to coaching. Can they win a national championship? They can. Do I think they will? I think they're a second weekend team, but I do think they're very talented and they're very freaking tough.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out because one of the things that I just sort of noticed watching that week in Maui, and it's understandable because you're talking about 2 straight off seasons of complete reload for the most part, right? Losing 30, 40% of your production. And you're really, really having to start over this year. You could see, like, as the shot creation becomes a little bit more developed and roles start to be defined and refined, I can see the vision, man. I'm not like betting them for national champion or anything like that, Tyler, but you could just see a world where these guys understand way more in February. And what we talk about Duke, right? I think it's kind of the same thing with this UConn team. They may not be as young, but in terms of minutes played, they kind of are. So you could see a world in, February, March where this does look a whole lot different. And it does look like, one of the best teams in college basketball. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I got one
shouldn't.
point.
I didn't.
I got one point. I got
Okay.
one point to go along with what you guys are both saying, and you in particular, John. I loved your point about like still kind of learning what they are and where their roles are. There was a pretty cool point. Schulman and Billis were talking. They're like, every time UConn gets in a jam towards the end of the clock, they find Caravan. Well, that is true. However, a guy like Liam McNeely, who played at Montverde Academy, he's played with a lot of really, really good players, but a couple of those like easy shots for Caravan towards the end came as a result of Liam McNeely making a hard cut to the rim and taking two defenders with him. And then Caravan ends up with wide open threes. So understanding you can impact the game doing different things. So you look at a guy like Terrence Reed, transfers from Michigan. He's asked to do a little bit different, not totally different, but a little bit. You look at Liam McNeely, who's this super freshman. He's learning how to impact the game and doing different things. Solo ball this year, doing some different things. So while I think the upside is still there because you have some of these younger players, a lot of sophomores playing, like some of these other guys that have been hurt lately, like they're still trying to find different ways to be effective and different ways to impact the basketball game. And that's what you ended up seeing today and against Baylor.
Yep, absolutely. So nice.
Hey man, I'm sick
nice
of this, John. Let's talk Memphis. Let's talk Memphis.
No,
That's what I'm here.
I really think there's just been so much that's happened in college basketball that we don't have to get. No, listen. If Tyler has to answer for North Carolina, it's only fair that I have to answer for Memphis, who obviously entered today ranked number 16 in the country. Had a great week in Maui, stacked up some nice wins, but they lose 85-72 at home. As an 11.5, 12-point favorite to Arkansas State and Brian Hodgson. And I think, T.O., a couple of things. One is this is exactly what went wrong with Memphis a year ago. You would look great against the Clemsons of the world, of the Virginias of the world, but you run into these lower-level teams, these lower league teams, and the focus is not nearly the same. And they got caught several times. So that's the first thing. And I would say, secondly, T.O., the way that Memphis lost this game, I think this was wire to wire for Arkansas State in Memphis. I mean, defensively, Memphis was just they were in scramble mode all day. So to have Arkansas State come into your building, T.O., and just beat you from start to finish, how deflating a loss is that for Memphis? Where does that sort of leave them? And I know you got to give credit to Arkansas State first. That's the way we go. So, but just sort of your overall thoughts on what happened in Memphis today.
Hey, Brian Hodgson, hell of a coach. You want to talk about the next guy who we're going to start considering for big-time jobs? Brian's going to be in that mix. He's got the Red Wolves there, 7-win improvement in league last year, overall last year. Those guys are still going to be competing in the Sun Belt, could win the Sun Belt. They're good. They've put their roster together really nice. The scary part for Memphis is this. Arkansas is, 70 miles from Memphis's campus? Yes. Have you no pride? And then after you get your hind parts kicked, you don't even show up for the press? You're going to let the players are just going to leave? That's crazy. Brutal. That's nonsense.
Now they did radio. They did post game radio, but they did not show up for the press conference with the rest of the media. But still, the point is the same to me.
Point is the same. Ridiculous. You get your ass whooped, and it's because of lack of effort. You need to face the music, and they did not do that. That's worrisome, and that's something, quite frankly, guys like Penny needs to get on. That's not okay. Penny can't duck questions. Penny doesn't duck questions. Penny's right there. Now, does he want to? Sure. Does he do it? No. Right. You have to. These are some of the things that you have to do. You guys are getting paid money by FedEx and God knows who else over there in Memphis. You need to show up for post-game interviews whenever you don't live up to your end of the freaking billing. That's what needs to happen. Here's my problem. You play that game, 16 offensive boards for Arkansas State. Arkansas State's athletic. Let's not kid ourselves. Arkansas State is athletic, but they also have some shooters. Pinion could shoot the basketball. Transfer from Arkansas, right? Comes down, plays for Bryant, starts knocking down shots. What's the easiest three in basketball? It's off an offensive rebound. You're just giving extra opportunities. That was the most deflating thing. It's not that you weren't more talented than Arkansas State, because you are. They're good, and it's not as big a differential as what you would think. But at the same time, that's a game you need to win. I had to fly into Memphis to do an Arkansas State game last year. I drove from Memphis to Arkansas State. It's about an hour and change. Where's the pride? Those guys are back at their parties at Arkansas State tonight, having a ball. I guarantee you on a Sunday.
Jonesboro and Jones Boogie.
There's nothing to get you in trouble there in Jonesboro. There are cow pastures across the street. Them dudes are having a ball. No class on Monday. Call it off. That's all I'm saying. You cannot lose because of lack of effort when you're supposed to be a top 20 team in college basketball. That's what happened today, and it was embarrassing. Memphis got embarrassed. However, could be a wake-up call. They have Clemson at Clemson Saturday, and that's going to be a big one. That's a litmus test right there for Memphis.
And they got a week to think about this one. Tio, how concerning is it to you that that happens to, that's a top 25 team in Memphis. They had hopes and dreams to lose a game in that fashion to an Arkansas State.
I feel bad for Randolph Childress, who has had Penny Hardaway's back the entire time. And then they lay an egg like this. Fred of God and everybody. Like, am I concerned? Yeah. I am a little bit concerned because, this wasn't a talent thing. You got to show up, man. College isn't the NBA. I do 41 NBA games a year. Those games can pile up, and you'll have 5 and 8 days and all those stuff, and you play 82 games over the course of the season. College, man, you're playing 32 games, 33 games. If you win the national championship, you're getting close to 40. Dude, you got to freaking show up. I don't care who you're playing against. These aren't necessarily get-right games. They're calling we need this games. That's what you need to do. And keep in mind, too, the American Conference has struggled. You're going up against Sunbelt. Whew, you need these games. Embarrassing loss for them just because of the effort piece.
Yeah. And then last game of the night that we need to touch on here, again, buzzer beater, Dylan Andrews banks in a three, down 71-70, walks it off. At Oregon, 73-71. Tyler, kind of a reminder in a way, right? Mick Cronin, these UCLA, it might be new digs, it might be a new league, but he's still one of the greats in college basketball, right?
Mick Cronin is one of the greatest coaches at learning how to win dirty. You can never underestimate a Cronin team. Defensively, they get after you, they clean up the boards, and even though they don't have the high-scoring games, they do what they need to do to win, and they make winning plays. Let's see here. The Eric Dudley Jr. kid went off tonight, had a big game for UCLA. And obviously when you play defense and you play the style that UCLA does, it always gives you a chance to win these ball games.
Tio, real quick, any thoughts from you on this one?
Hey, look, you playing conference play, you're going to play some close games. And the good thing about when you're Mick Cronin, you're comfortable playing in the 60s and the 70s because you defend, you keep yourself in games, and you're going to leave yourself susceptible to winning on the road when you probably have no business doing so. Big time shot at the end. I want to say it was Dylan Andrews, but my mind's drawing a blank right now. But big time shot by them. Hell of a game. For UCLA, I was kind of I'm not going to call myself a UCLA hater, but I was skeptical of how this was going to go after having such a poor year. But they've righted the ship. UCLA is really good at 8-1, and you bank a three from that court. I didn't know where the three was. I was taking a look at the clip, all-time bad court design there at Oregon. I don't care how much Nike money you have, terrible court design. I can't even see where the 3-point line is.
Well, that's not where but big time nuts and guts shot, no question about that, from Dylan Andrews. All right, Tio, we're coming right back to you. It's that time for toast of the night.
I'm not ready, man. I'm not ready. Actually,
okay.
I am ready.
All right, he's not ready.
I'm just kidding.
Pray about
just kidding.
Okay, he's ready.
All right, I have a toast of the night, and I knew where this was going to be the second I saw it. This one's a pretty easy one. Tamar Bates at Mizzou. That dude was a problem today. You know what? The kid gritted it out. I talked about it at the beginning of the show. He gritted it out last year, played in every single game, played hard. They just couldn't win games because they were injury deprived, and they just didn't have the dudes you needed to win at a high level. This year they do. He's able to showcase his full talent. I called him a 6-year guy. He's not. Just felt like everybody's old. He's a true senior. His child was there at the court. I thought that was big time. What a fun win for the Border War. Toast goes to Tamar Bates.
Toast. All right, Tyler, who gets your Sunday, December 8th toast of the night?
I'm going to piggyback off that. I'm going to go Dennis Gates. And the reason I'm going to do that because I grew up a Missouri Tigers fan, and it's good to see them competing and getting wins against ranked team. And this rivalry, like Tio said, second best rivalry in college basketball. And I'm glad it's back.
Yeah. Toast to Dennis. every time I've watched this team's play, I've always been a big fan. So I'm happy to see him bounce back after last year, because I don't think that's characteristic of who he really is as a coach. I think he's definitely one of the good ones. I guess you guys are going to force me to do it. Brian Hodgson. Yeah, I got to give it up to Brian Hodgson, man. How can I not? Coming into Memphis as a 13-point underdog. By the way, 3 weeks after, he has to change a tire, change a belt on his bus, but with his own bare hands because AAA didn't show up or whatever the case may be. And he brings that approach to Memphis, and they come out here with a win that was never really even in doubt. So, look, I hate that it has to, be against the Memphis Tigers, but I got to give it up to a job well done to Brian Hodgson in Arkansas State, because that was wire to wire, and that doesn't typically happen. So very, very good job all around by the Arkansas State Red Wolves today. Well, that's going to do it for us today on a December 8th edition of Field of 68 After Dark. It was a very busy day in college basketball. So for Terrence Oglesby, for Tyler Hansbrough,